Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm back with my show, Insights with Dean Shams. So today I've got a really interesting and lively guest. She is Rika Facundo, and we were chatting, and she had a very interesting project that I thought that was so relevant in the very crazy, chaotic times of today. So what really caught my attention was how she managed to bring a new perspective in building your career in a very chaotic time. So let me bring her on to the studio. Hello, Rika.
Hey Dean, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Hi.
Woohoo.
Okay, so introducing Rika. Rika loves to identify and investigate the dynamic context that influence human behavior. And from this, she loves to create opportunities and bring people together. Professionally, she is a design thinking researcher, and her research revolves around design. And that's how she came about the project called Rising Sideways. Yes, it's very nice. So, Rika, you're the best person. You started the project. So tell me, what is Rising Sideways, or what does it mean, and how the idea was born?
Sure. So I think there are two ways to look at rising sideways. I think literally it means career change or making a pivot in your career. But I think it's so much bigger than that. And that's
Mm,
the thing that I'm most interested in is about rising sideways as an ethos and a philosophy. Because what I've realized, and this is based on my experience and also talking to different people and just observing what's happening around me, is that
mm,
there's not one way or there's not one right way to go about your career. There's no one right way about growing in your career. And
mm.
I think we need to start thinking about, even if I take a sideways step, a backward step, whatever step, anything that happens to you, you gain experience, and that will probably make you grow into a person. And you maybe like a couple years down the line, you realize that actually what you had done before is super applicable to what you're doing now. And I guess
Sorry. So you really reminded me about a lot of professionals who actually they are so afraid to step sideways, step out of the path, because they have been taught from maybe school days that they have to have a career plan and then they need to follow it so strictly. So I really love the fact that you said it's okay to step out of that line for a while and explore, right? Please. So,
yeah.
what else is Rising Sideways about?
I'm going to build on that point, Dean, because I was reflecting about how to best explain this. And
Mm,
I'm going to take the example of travel, right? Everyone loves
mm,
travel. That's something that's
mm.
familiar to everyone. And you know how when you're traveling and then you say, okay, I need to get to point A to point B. But
Okay.
usually the best experiences is when you start to wander.
Ah,
You find the side, you find the little alleys here and there, and then you discover something that you didn't see before. And then even if you
mm,
finally get to your destination, sometimes looking back you realize, actually that sideways step was probably more memorable and more meaningful to me. And you realize, actually I don't care about the destination B that I had intended to go to. Actually that sideways step, the thing that I discovered, actually opened me up to something else. The reason I use travel as like a metaphor is because when
mm,
people think about career change, it's so scary. It's like, it's so, especially now, right, during COVID times.
yeah.
And a part of what I try to do is try not to make it so scary. It is a part of life. So how do we inject more curiosity and wonder, and just to take the pressure off of this idea of being
Mm.
lost and finding your way? And that's kind of based on, like, born out of my own personal frustrations and growing up and like reflecting a lot in my own career as well.
Mm. So, what do you see lacking in the way people are building their careers now, or pre-COVID days? That would be like last year, right? So, up to last year, what did you already start to notice that people could do their career better, that they could approach their careers better, career planning? So, what's it in your opinion? What is it that people are lacking?
I think, and this has been my own personal journey as well, I think the biggest hurdle that people need to overcome when they want to rise sideways or make a change is to detach their self-worth
Mm.
from their company that they work for.
Ah,
The
yes.
company does not own your talent. And I know it's that weird feeling you feel indebted because they give you all this
Mm,
opportunity.
mm, mm.
But no, these skills and these experience and your talent, they lie within you, right? And that's the reason why people feel so scared when they have to make a change, because suddenly if I'm not with that company, who am I?
Mm.
What can I do? So part of that path of rising sideways is about like realizing that you have it within you, that to get that confidence and just apply it in new ways. So I think that's the
Mm.
first thing that people are, that prevents people from making that career change. The second thing is this idea of experimentation. And
Mm.
when you experiment, you iterate. And I think this is taken from my experience in design thinking,
Mm.
experimentation and being iterative, creating
Mm.
small experiments and prototypes so that you can gain a little bit of experience. Like, oh, is this for me? Is this not for me? Okay, if it's not for me, it's okay. It's a small thing. I can move on.
I think at least in Singapore, we are so ingrained with the fact that if you fail, you are bad. You must always succeed. So how can someone come out of that trap, the mental trap that you cannot fail, especially in your career? Because it is not only probably like a risk of earning less, but it is also a form of like shame, right? Embarrassment that, oh, you fail, and then everyone's going to know that your career didn't work out.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
This fear of failure, and I think the Singapore context, I think it's an Asian thing, right? I
Mm,
spoke to one of the coaches that I spoke to, and I asked him, why is coaching? What are some of the barriers to coaching right now? He said that in the West, I think coaching has been around for a long time. It's a little bit
a
more
long time.
mature, but here
Mhm.
it's just starting, and the reason is because people are afraid to ask for help. Because when they ask for help, it seems that there's something wrong with them and they're a failure. I don't think that that should be the case, right? I think another parallel thing you can look at is going to the gym, right? It's
Mm,
like, you ask for help. That's why your trainers are there. That is why you say, "Oh, I can't do this now, but I can get there a little bit later on."
mm. Okay, so I know you were sharing with me that in one of the organizations you were also dealing with a lot of the internship programs. So working with them and then knowing people, do you think that people are actively building their careers, or are they just very focused on their current job and then they just work very hard at it and hope that from there they can rise up the ladder vertically?
Hmm.
What's your observation?
I think when I used, just for everyone's context, in my earlier years, I was I ran a lot of internship programs and management training
Mm,
programs. And the thing I always tell young people, as if I'm not a young person myself, is that do, do you know what it's like, you don't have to figure everything out right now. Something
mm,
I told someone recently is like, you should write down all of these things that you want, right? And then you see what's the opportunity in front of you to do that certain thing. So you take it,
mm,
because that's another thing about rising sideways. What it's about the now. What is it that you can do now that you can do? And then, maybe later down the line, you'll say, oh, okay, actually, there's another opportunity for me to do this. And then by that time, I can combine that opportunity, what I've learned with this opportunity, and bring it together. And that's where the magic happens. Because the point of
mm,
rising sideways is that you don't know what the future holds, but you always need to be prepared. You always need to be curious. You always need to be reading. You need to be, doing projects here and there.
mm,
This idea of side projects, right? I love doing side projects, but I think the way people think about side projects is like it's hustle. You have to make money, or it's about quitting your job and suddenly doing that. I think there are people that's for, but I like to look at projects as a way to experiment and to learn. Okay, I want to learn something like that. What's a low risk
mm,
way of me to learn to do that?
mm,
Like, it's a
mm, mm,
hobby,
mm.
right? So why don't I start doing that, and maybe it can lead to something down the line.
I noticed that the point that you're making or you're implying also is that don't wait for your boss to send you for upgrading courses. You are constantly looking out for how can I build my potential? How can I realize it? How can I create or develop new talents within myself, right?
Mm.
Okay, so you talked about opportunity, and I just want to highlight that I also do a lot of employability coaching. So I help people to think about how to work on their careers and interview skills, resume skills, all those things. One thing I come across very often is this. They will say, I have this opportunity, but I just went for an interview for a bigger opportunity. Should I take it now because they're offering it to me now, this small opportunity? What if the bigger one comes along? So I always tell them that, like I want to echo what you said, is that you take the opportunity that's presented to you right in front now, because that is certain, right? And in a VUCA world, in an uncertain world, the bigger opportunity may be there, but it may not ever come into your life because it may be given to someone else, right? So take what you have. So, talking about opportunity, there are people who, because they have been retrenched or been made redundant, this is real and there's no shame to it. They then say, okay, this is a good time for me to change industries and change roles. So, meaning that they're doing a complete revamp of their career path, usually because they're like, oh, I've been in this industry for so long, I'm kind of sick and tired of it. I want to experience something new. What is your take on how they can now pivot their careers into a new path?
Mm. That is a great question. The COVID time right now is a strange time, right?
Mm,
And some people could argue it's the wrong time to pivot now because it's all
mm,
about job security, but it's also the best time to pivot as well because suddenly you know everyone's more empathetic. Like the
mm,
barrier, the risk is lower, right? You have no choice, and you need to start doing something. So when it comes to the thing is with rising sideways is that it's already within you, right? And so the
mm,
thing that I like to advocate a lot is this idea about pivoting from your comfort zone. I know that sounds counterintuitive because people say you should always go outside of your comfort zone because it's good. I agree with that. But the thing is, when you're going to a new place, right, that's unknown and scary,
mm,
what do you need at that point? You need a sense of control and you need a
mm,
sense of comfort. So that comes down to what you're already good at. What are your
mm,
what are your skills? So that gives, okay, even if I'm in a new environment, I know I can do this and I can apply. I'll give you an example, right? So I'm a researcher right now, but that's
mm.
not what I was trained to do. My background is
Okay.
in journalism and writing, right?
Mm,
So when I went
mm,
into the research field, I'd be like, oh my God, like all these people have all this proper training. Like, who am I, this girl, right? Who's new it. But if I boil it down, I'm like, hey, I know how to interview people and I know how to get insights. Do you know what I mean? That does not
mm,
belong to the field of research. That's something that I know I'm good at. It's something that, that was honed in me when I was, back in, writing and journalism training. So I stuck to that, right? As I was learning all these new skills, I knew, okay,
mm.
I can do this one thing really well. And, that gives me confidence.
Okay.
So that's the first part. The second part is now you're liberated from the industry, and that's the exciting part, right? Because it's like, where can you start applying the skills that you know how to do to an industry that you really like? Whereas I like this, the phrase I like to use is, where can I make the biggest impact, right? It could be something, maybe you're helping your friends that are around you, right? Apply your marketing skills, your copywriting
Mm,
skills to
mm,
friends who are
mm,
starting new businesses. You start doing that, and then maybe that becomes a bigger thing. Who knows? So those are
mm.
the kind of the two tips I think I would give for people who are trying to navigate how to pivot their career during this time.
You mentioned something that was very important for us to recognize, and that is fear of going into something new, a new area. So, based on my interaction and coaching with all these uh, executives who are in between jobs, they always say, "Oh, since I'm going," and this is the thought pattern in their mind. They say, "Since I'm going into a new career, new industry, then I need to lower my expectations in terms of salary." But I always tell them, "No, you need to think about all the transferable skills that you could bring in, and that could be something that the new industry might be looking for. So that does not mean that your worth is lowered now." So I just want to get your opinion on how can they recalibrate their careers? Like, what do they need to do? What are some of the thoughts that they need to kind of process to then go into a new area very confidently?
Um, I think at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to confidence. What will give you confidence? And what will give you
Mm,
confidence is basically what you tell yourself, right? It's how you
mm,
reframe things, right? To your
mm,
point about, I know a lot of people who want to make a pivot, but either they don't want to take a lower pay cut,
Mm.
or it might be a lower title, so it feels there's a sense of like demotion, right? But the thing is, right, it's when the beauty about rising sideways is that you're in control. It's a lot more intentional. Yes,
Mm.
maybe in the short term you are taking either a lower pay or a lower title, but you know that in the long term it's going to get you to where you need to go. And because
Mm.
that's something you're really good at, you probably get there faster. Because at the end of the day, if you're moving into something that you feel like you can be really good at, then as they say, the money will come, and
Mm.
you'll just enjoy doing it so much that people start like coming to you, for that. So I
Mm.
think that's finding ways to get back that feeling of control and to design go again, because my background is in design thinking. It's being
Mm.
really intentional, right? Chaos is always out. Actually, chaos people think is a bad thing. Chaos is also a good thing because it gets, it forces you up, and to do new things. The point is that you need to design the right chaos for yourself, right? So
Oh, I
that
like that line.
you have to
Can you
design
say
your
that
own
again? Can
chaos.
you say that again?
You have to design your own chaos, right? It's like an
Yes.
experiment, right? Again,
Yeah.
going back, so design, I've been thinking about this a lot, this idea of needing to experiment. The best thing about experimenting, it's contained, right?
Mm.
So you know what your control variable is, which is maybe your skills, your experience, and then there are all
Mm.
these unknown variables. You don't know what's going to happen, but in that space
Mm.
and time, okay, let's see what's going to happen, and you
Mm.
start small. Start small. You learn. Okay, make it a bit bigger. Change it here. Then suddenly, by the time you have to make a big change, it doesn't feel so
Mm.
big anymore. Pivots don't have to be a big thing. There are mini pivots and then there are major pivots. And the mini pivots, they build up and build up. So by the time you have to change, it's like, I've been doing this for a long time already. It's not so
Okay.
scary anymore, right?
So a change in industry and a change in career, like roles, like what you're saying, is not a big jump, but it's just small skips, and then you slowly go up to a new place, right? And then suddenly you are there. I love what
Mhm.
you're saying. All right. So another thing that came to my mind is, uh, are there misconceptions about pivoting careers? You already mentioned one. It's not a big jump; it's a small step. But are there others?
Uh, I think one of the big misconceptions is that you need to start from scratch. It's like
Mm.
it's like, oh, suddenly I put on new clothes, I talk a little bit differently, and suddenly I'm this new person 24/7. No, it's not like that. You don't have to start from scratch. You start with what you already have at that point in time, and you find a way to build from start to way to
Mm.
build from there. Again, going back to my example before, like I'm new to research, but I have all this experience in interviewing and writing and whatever, and that is something I use, and then I can start building upon. And I'm like, okay, design thinking is a new thing. It's a bit more trendy. It will make me applicable to the market. I'm going to add that on top. I'm going to add that on top. And suddenly you
Mm.
have Rika 2.0. 10 years down the
Oh,
line,
nice.
it'll be Rika 3.0. You know what I mean? So the
Nice.
point is that you don't start from scratch. You're not pouring from an empty cup, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Tell me if I'm not making sense, Steve.
No, you are making perfect sense, and you have been bringing up very new perspective to an old problem. I don't think this is a new problem, because people have always wanted to change their careers,
Yeah.
COVID or not, pandemic or not, right? Okay, next, is there a wrong time to pivot your
Uh,
career?
if my sister's watching, she'll probably be laughing at me.
Why?
Because so it's funny. I mean, obviously my platform is about pivoting and I believe in the power of pivoting. But I've recently made a pivot. In my head, I'm like, I don't want to pivot for the next like couple of years.
Mm.
The reason is because, if you're in a place where you're learning and it's not a toxic environment, don't pivot,
Mm.
right? At the end of the day, rising sideways is about learning, right?
Mm.
What are the opportunities, where are the areas that you can best learn? So
Mm.
don't pivot for the sake of pivoting, right?
Yeah.
Another wrong way to pivot is the best pivots are the ones that you create that are intentional, right?
Mm.
I mean, going back to the COVID example, COVID is forcing a lot of people to pivot, whether they like it or not, which in some ways
Mm.
is good. Some people need that tough, like burning of the bridge. But ideally, you don't want pivoting should not be a reaction to the environment. You should be the one
Mm,
to design it yourself.
mm. Right. So rising sideways is also a blog, right? So you have that blog later. I'll put out, I'll share the blog address. Um, you in that blog, I was just skimming through, and you address the issue of language of achievement and success. Uh, what is wrong or right about this language of achievement and success? Usually it is taken as a good thing, but I remember reading it and say, you mentioned that it's something that's not so good.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's not so good. There's a time and place for that, right?
Mm,
When you're so the context is that you're learning something new. When you're
mm,
learning something new, you're going to fail. Okay, you're going to fail multiple times. And imagine when you're learning something new and failing, and the language you're saying like I still haven't, I still have. I'm going to use like gym, going to the gym as an analogy, right? Oh, I still haven't run, I haven't done 30 reps of that thing. That stresses you out. I don't know about you, it'll
mm.
stress me out.
It will, it does, yeah.
it will add more pressure. So in that beginning phase, it should be more about, okay, instead of saying what did I succeed today, it should be like what did I learn today, right? Maybe I learned that if I, do my arm this way, it's actually not going to make me any faster. Tomorrow I will do it differently,
Mm,
right? Because
mm, mm, mm,
ultimately, when you talk about goals are important, but it just it adds a lot of unnecessary pressure in a time when you're supposed to be experimenting and failing and learning.
mm. So let's say, friends, if you are thinking about pivoting, but there's still that small fear, I would say. I think there's like an animal inside of you that prevents you from taking this next step. I'm sure you would want to know what will be the first step I need to take to make the pivot. So Rika, I want to ask you that question. What is the first step someone needs to take to make the pivot and make it slowly comfortable for them to continue pivoting?
I recently did an interview with someone. It's like a strengths training coach, and it's nice because it kind of sense check my bias because I'm all about pivoting. Pivoting should be the first step in your journey. Actually, the pivoting is not the first step in your journey. It's understanding what your strengths are. So, you need to do the hard work of looking to yourself and seeing what you're good at. Because remember what I said at the beginning, the biggest change is about not tying your self-worth and your talent to your company,
Mm,
that it is in with you, right? And you need to do the work, whatever it is, talking to people, writing things down, whatever it is, talking to a coach to understand what your strengths are,
mm,
because that's what's core, right? Because
mm,
like I said, the pivoting and rising sides is about adapting what you already know. So what it
mm,
is that you know. If you don't know what you know, then you're going to be confused when you try to change
mm,
over.
mm, mm. You mentioned about having a coach, right? So I think one thing that we also need to know is how to choose the right coach, because the coach's, I would say, mindset or perspective can really influence our decisions, right? So have you ever had a coach or at least a mentor during all your pivoting times? And what is your experience like? Tell me the good and the bad. No need to mention names.
Oh, Dean, I've always been trying to look for a coach or a mentor, and I guess in the formal professional sense, I don't have one, to be
A
honest,
formal one. All right.
a
Okay.
formal one, because the thing, I mean, you are a reflection of the people around you, right? And if you
Mm,
kind of surround yourself with people that inspire you, that you learn from, that is helpful. But
mm,
so coach is one way to do it.
mm,
But there are, so on my blog, one of the things I wrote about is this idea of pivot guides, right? There are guides who are supposed to help you progress an existing track, but then there are also guides who are supposed to help you move over, right? When you want to move over, you need to find people who are different from you, who are expose you to new ways of things. And when you reframe it that way, your coach can be like, my book is my coach, like Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, they're my coaches. I learned stuff from them. Brene Brown, Anthony
mm,
Bourdain is someone who really
mm,
inspired me. And so that term, I call is like the brain trust. Who do you want in your brain trust? It's kind of like for anyone who's into like a Marvel and Avengers. It's like,
Mm.
who do you want to be your, if you had to assemble your team of Avengers, who would it be, right? They're all good at different things and they can expose you to different things. Another reason why I say to do that is because you need to steal their language so that you can incorporate it into what you want to do. So when I wanted to move into like design thinking and futurism, I bought all the books from all these famous people.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to use how they spoke and I'm going to try incorporating into how I speak until it becomes natural, until I become, I put my own spin on it.
That is like learning a new dialect, right? Because every
Yeah.
industry has its own dialect, and then we just need to know, and so that we get accepted into it, and we don't look
Yeah.
like we are an outsider. I
Yeah.
think you made amazing points, something to think about. Anyone who is thinking about pivoting their career or even business, right? A lot of
Yeah.
us are self-employed, and because of the
Sorry,
COVID, yeah.
can I interrupt you there? I just want to
Sure,
add one
sure.
more point on that, because a lot of the things that when I speak to people, they talk about is, yeah, you want to make, there's what you need to do, but there's also the system, right? And you can apply for a job and they were like, where's your 10 years experience in PR and marketing? And you didn't do
Mm,
that
mm.
before, like why, right? That's why I think like that brain trust I was talking about is super important, because to your point about learning a new language, you steal their language to show the person that you're interviewing with that you've done your homework, you know what you're talking about, and and give me a chance. Look, I may not know this, I will learn it, but I can bring all of these other things, my core strengths in, and apply those in new ways that will serve that company as well.
With that, Rika, you have given us so much wonderful points, new perspective, and I'm sure anyone out there thinking about pivoting, be it in their career, in their business, you gave really good points and some kind of structure to the thinking, because when your thinking is all messed up, you don't have a structure to it, you can't really make really good decisions. So friends, if you want to get in touch with Rika and find out more about her rising sideways concept, so let me share with you the uh, yeah, here. So go to www.risingsideways.co. So Rika, with that, I am so happy that I got you onto this show, and amazing tips. So thank you, Rika, and thank you, friends, for this session. I hope, friends, you will all get moving towards the right path towards a new career, and have a good weekend. Bye
Woohoo!
bye.
Enjoy your Friday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.